hello, welcome to this episode of Timber Talks. We're here today in the Kingdom of Fife at Burntisland, which is a new one for me. I've never been here before. And I'm delighted to welcome my colleague, Scott Grant, who is the
Managing Director of Scott Pallets.
Great, because I wasn't sure I was going to remember what your job title was. So we're in one of the manufacturing units of the Scott business. There's multiple sites across the country.
Yeah, this would be one of, overall within the pallets business, almost 30 sites overall. But from a manufacturing perspective, this is one of 10 that we've got networked across the country, and one of the major ones, clearly key in this geography, Scotland.
Yeah. So significant expansion when Scott's joined the business to the amount of locations, and we've probably got something like 70 locations across the business now, when taking into sawmills some of the other added value and the Till Hill locations. So a large step forward in terms of the size of the business, and indeed an additional number of employees, numbering...
Yeah, well, 1,000 employees in the business overall, and I guess the strength of the network is, first and foremost, it's in the locations where our customers are, which is always the good thing to do. But first, beyond that as well, the reality is the haulage cost is a significant element of our trading business overall. So to be where the action is obviously makes sense.
Yeah, because pallets don't weigh very much, but
there's a lot of fresh air being travelled at any point in time.
Okay, and we've got a few bits and pieces moving around at case in point behind us. So tell us a bit more about this location.
Yeah, so this site's been here for over a decade, since it moved into here. Its customer base would largely be focused around the food and drinks sector here. As you can imagine, Scotland, whisky plays a huge part of it. Yeah. Also the salmon processing industry as well. But they also have a significant share within the construction sector as well. So the manufacturer of building products and the like is, they service that too. So.
And what's been interesting for me, I've had a crash course this morning on pallets. I have been to some pallet manufacturers before, but it's like all these things, the more you look into it, the more you find out. And so, for example, here we've got a pallet with a really heavy section bearer, by which I mean this piece here, which normally would just be a small block, is right away along.
Yeah. So specifically these pallets will be to service the whisky sector. So you can imagine barrels that are, in terms of the loading of barrels for storage in there. This site, in general terms, would probably output, maybe 6,000 pallets a day. Wow. Overall. There's a mix on this location between automated, machine-made product for some of the volume pieces that we make, but outside of that as well, a significant proportion of our work here is bench-made pallets. Now that's either because the volumes don't justify running on automation, or some of the size, the bespoke nature of it as well just don't lend itself to that. So that's an important part of what we do as well.
And so those would be going into a higher value application. I'm guessing barrels of whiskey are
absolutely.
Not cheap.
So if you consider maturation pallets, they're going into storage for a considerable length of time, and indeed need to get reused time and time again. Absolutely the integrity of those and the qualities.
And I guess where we are, actually, we're well located for the Scotch whisky industry.
Absolutely, a huge proportion of what these guys do. So
where does all this material come from? And I mean, I recognise some of the labels here from internally, but there's obviously some imported material and then some other bits and pieces.
Yeah, so the majority of our timber now definitely comes in through the group, so either through our BSW or our Binderholtz ownership overall. I would say that typically here we're consuming anything up to 1,000 cube of timber a week. Around us here we have about 6,000 cube available and in storage, as it were, raw material wise. I mean, that gives great comfort to the customers, actually, just from a security and a sustainability point of view, that actually we're well prepared for any increases, short-term increases in demand.
If an order comes in quickly, and I don't know the nature of the supply chain, but we can. What you're saying is we can react almost
Absolutely,
overnight.
yeah, absolutely. Certainly, we would like to think that we've got a portfolio of stock sizes here that would allow us to cater for most demands.
Yeah, and indeed, walking around earlier, the guys were saying that we're taking a few more people on because orders are picking up. And
Absolutely, there is an element of seasonality around the business for sure. But I think one of the benefits this site does have, because it serves a few sectors, they actually manage to counter themselves pretty well. So, good, stable, experienced workforce here in particular.
And it's interesting walking around, I'm seeing material that's quite obviously spruce, that's homegrown, that's come from presumably one of the BSW sawmills. And then we've got composite blocks, so the bearers, the corner bits of the pallet coming.
So we'll also source those either internally for some sizes or from Europe.
And some of that's made out of like the compressed sawdust.
So composite blocks. So.
Yeah. And indeed, we've also got pallet boards, obviously imported from our parents in Austria or Germany, presumably
Finland as well. So yeah. And historically, the benefit of this site and this location as well, it does have access to the port. So if we have to do any particular importing, to cope with demand, or indeed, given that timber is a global market with global difficulties, we have to be able to pivot around and make sure that we've got that supply route. So we've got the advantage of the port here as well.
So material comes in through the port or shipped in locally?
Yeah, it does. I mean, under a change in ownership, I think more importantly now, we're getting serviced internally. UK homegrown timber is by far the significant proportion of what we do here. So that gives us a real stability and security in supply.
Yeah, and the linkage to the sawmill, of course, is that pallet boards allows us to run the sawmills as efficiently as we can and maximise the recovery out of the log. So it's a win-win all the way down the supply chain.
And I think over time we're examining the specifications available to us to make sure that we're optimising that between us as a group overall. And if it's efficient for us, ultimately it's efficient for the customer as well, in terms of availability or indeed cost too.
So Jamie's just joined us. So we've got a lorry load of pallets that have got blue ends on. Just tell us a bit about what's going on there.
All the parts we make here are customer based, and sometimes they take multiple specifications. So sometimes we'll colour code the pallets so the customer knows at their end what product to use. So the one behind us is for superglass.
So, and that's why it's got green.
That's got green because the other product looks similar, but it's slightly different in sizes. So this is the 1110 by 1110, sorry, the 1100 by 1100, but they take a 12 by 12. So people that aren't in the pallet game, or people that just on a
pallet's just a pallet,
they know what to grab. They know to grab the green ones, they know to grab the plain ones. The one behind us with the blue for tarmac, that's the product that goes on, as far as I believe, the product that goes on that pallet is blue, it's blue circle cement. So they know that product goes on that pallet.
And I guess that's a really important point, isn't it? Because, to many people, a pallet's just a pallet, but there's a huge multitude of different sizes. And I mean, you probably don't know how many, but we'll be producing many different sizes.
So we've got a very, especially the whiskey industry, we've got a lot of bespoke whiskey sizes, right? Me, being the novice that I am when it comes to whiskey, I thought barrels were the same size. And I thought pallets should be the same size for all the barrels, but they're not. So we have maybe 10 different specifications on whiskey pallets that take the same size barrel, but the customer wants these sizes so they can store them in their sheds to full capacity. So if their shed measures a certain amount, they want these pallets built to this size so they can get all these pallets in their shed. So everything is very customer focused in specifications.
And that's, I guess, the flexibility we've got as a business. And presumably if someone comes along and they want something a bit different, we can fairly quickly...
we can do it. So there's a technical team in the background that does drawing specifications, works with the sales team. We get that information, we get supplied the timber, the planning team plan it in, and we produce it. And that's how it works. It all goes down. We're the ones at the end producing the final product, shipping it to the customer.
And then these ones with the really heavy section bearers here, they are...
They're Diageo shuttle pallet.
Right, okay.
So they're unique, they're very unique.
So there's going to be a lot, when you're describing a shuttle, that's stuff that's presumably getting multiple use?
As far as I'm aware, yes. So as far as I'm led to believe, Diageo take multiple specifications. All right, I can go through the sizes, but I won't. So this here is specific to this size, 1240 by 1240, so they can maximise their shed. So whoever's at that end have measured their shed, they have looked at it, they've weighed it out.
The footprint.
They're like, right, if we get these parts at this size, we can score this product on this pallet and we can maximise the shed. I'm sure if you go to that end, there'll be a shed full of these everywhere in front of you. And it'll get locked up, shut off for 10, 15, 20 years. They'll open it up, boom, whiskey. And I think that's how it works.
And we've got multiple forklifts running around
Yeah,
here.
a lot of movement. Yeah.
And how many wagons are we typically loading out each day?
Right, so I'm production supervisor, so yeah,
Guess, mate.
logistics, right? So I guess easily 10, 15 loads a day going out on pallets,
Right.
and maybe the same coming in on timber.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's a one-way system. You might see it for yourselves, but we have a lot coming in that get stepped at this side. They come on this side, they get loaded at this side.
So when we're really clever, we're loading a wagon in and we're loading a wagon out.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got obviously we get our deliveries from mainly from BSW, but our logistics, HR Grey, they deliver for us, bring stuff in for us as well, and so it's a double use. I mean, you're taking stuff off, putting stuff on.
And that's both on sort of container or curtain sided wagons, and we've got flats as well.
Mainly flatbeds. The curtain siders are unique to kiln dried pallets,
right?
Because they have to be kept dry. So when
Okay.
your customers know what on a pallet strapped down, kiln dried. On a flatbed, when it can be raining, they get dirty, they get black again. So they're all curtain siders. So we can keep them clean.
Okay, so we've moved inside now, and we've swapped sides as well to the sharp-eyed amongst us. Now behind us, we've got two outfeeds from two different automated pallet lines where it's
from our copy machines.
Almost a robot type process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, semi-automated. So typically on this site we would be. In fact, I should maybe just reflect on the business overall. First of all, I mean we actually transact over 20 million pallets per year across the business.
Right, so that's one for every 3 people in the country.
The economy is obviously performing modestly just now. That will have peaked at various points in the last few years up towards 24, 25 for us. And there's a split across the business for that as well. So half of that activity will be in our reconditioned side of the business, which is trading and buying and selling pallets. And half of that is within the manufacturing situation that you see here. So this site would typically produce about 6,000 pallets a day just now. Historically, I'll have seen it producing 8,000, 9,000 a day, but it's got the capacity to go beyond that as well. So,
and pallets, therefore, are a barometer of how well the manufacturing side of the economy is going.
Yeah, absolutely, and particularly I think for ourselves, when we consider as a business overall that really we service the construction sector predominantly. If the construction sector is performing well, the economy is performing well. So it absolutely is a good barometer.
Yeah, because everything in the economy, or all the physical stuff in the economy, moves on a pallet. So if the economy's busy, we're busy, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we talked outside about how Scott's a relatively recent addition to the business, but there's been a ongoing partnership probably for all the time that I'd worked in the business for, which is about 18 years between Scott.
Yeah,
but perhaps talk to
and certainly longer than that. So BSW had always been our primary partner in the UK for timber, and obviously through the acquisition, the vertical integration of that, really, I mean, it really provides some real harmony for us overall. I mean, obviously the BSW business has the confidence and the security of the demand that the pallet business provides for them, but likewise as well, we've got that comfort and sustainability of a controlled timber source for us. So it really works well for us.
Yeah, and that same for BSW as well, because it gave a consistent offtake for the falling boards out to the sawmill.
Absolutely, and I think what we're trying to do now to work more cohesively as a group is make sure that our planning and our procurement functions are really well aligned, just so that we can actually deliver the best service for the customer, but obviously with best efficiency for us as a business overall. So we get a chance to work closer together in a way when we were just in a traditional customer-supplier relationship. Whilst it worked really well, it didn't allow us that advantage to do that. So we're well placed for that now.
Yeah, and look, tell us what's going on behind us. We've got these outfeeds here from these mechanised processes.
Yeah. So they'll come through from manufacture into the stacking here, into the drying and the painting shed effectively. So there's an element of marking sometimes need to be applied post-production to some of these pallets. Depends on the uniqueness of the customer. Some of it is done inline, some of it is done post-production. So this gets performed in this area here. It's a safer zone away from the activity, so hence the outfeeds out into this zone here. And once the markings have been applied, as you can see, forklift activity to either take us out into storage in the yard, or indeed take us through into perhaps the drying shed if they need to be heat treated or kiln dried. As we walked around outside, you'll have seen a significant amount of finished goods stock as well. So we try to make sure that that's well aligned to give our customers that security too.
Something we haven't touched on, but it's a relatively new development for us as a wider group and a business, is Pallet Loop. Perhaps you could talk a bit about that and explain what that consists of.
So Pallet Loop is a service effectively that, as you can imagine, the focus now in our everyday life, let alone business, in terms of reuse, it's a circularity solution really for the construction industry in particular. You've seen the range of specifications that are made on site. So it's an attempt to standardise on that. And whilst these pallets were by no means just single trip pallets that are being used, there is a lot of reuse and repair goes on anyway. The Pallet Loop initiative tries to make sure that that's delivered as a comprehensive service that motivates everyone in the supply chain to get that pallet returned, repaired if need be, and then back into the cycle.
Yeah, so they don't, I mean, I'm ashamed to say that I've got a few pallets lying around at home that will probably get chopped up and used for firewood.
Into your fire pit, yes.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying there is we're trying to really maximise that use and I guess reuse that pallet as many times as possible.
Absolutely, yeah. Reuse, the reuse rate for pallets in construction isn't fantastically high. And indeed, we can't truly know where all those pallets ultimately end up. But the Loop pallet scheme gives it that focus and that impetus to make sure that people will, when they see a green pallet on their site, they'll pick up the phone to make sure that we provide the collection service to that to get it back into the network.
And we are tracking those pallets, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And they come with a financial incentive attached that encourage that activity to get it back in and reuse. And it's good for everyone. It's keeping manufacturing costs down. It's getting a reuse rate up. So
a bit like when I was young and you used to get money back on your bottles of lemonade.
That's exact. I can't remember those, Harry, but I'll take your word for it.
But I think the other way we recognise them, they're painted green.
Yeah. And that's specifically to make sure that they've got that, first of all, clearly brand awareness, but more importantly, they're identifiable. It's easy if they're on it. You can imagine just the volume of pallets that are on a construction site at various levels of activity. So to make it an easy identifier, to make sure that people recognise they've got some value sitting on that site there.
Yeah.
So we'll perform that collection service actually for all of their pallets to make sure that they're reused, but more importantly to make sure that focus on the pallet loop.
So these are our two mechanised lines then?
Yeah, there's three overall, and the distinction is that these are better and they'll do the four-way pallets.
Right.
This is just two-way pallets for the most part. So,
and these are how old?
5 to 10.
Right, okay.
5 to 10.
So relatively modern technology.
Yeah. So we've got some investment to table on simple, not so much for replacement of these.
Yeah. In the same way as at Sawmill, you can break down a pack automatically. Here you can break down similar process. And why do we sometimes use a composite block? I'm guessing it's not as strong as solid timber.
No, but it's
cheaper.
And there's customer-specific demand around that. So
yeah, okay. An interesting different species in here, and I noticed that we've got wane on some, and I guess it's different specs.
Absolutely, and levels of acceptability as well.
Yeah.
So not all of that will necessarily find its way into
so
that pallet. But we may use that for repairs and some of the second-hand pallets and the like as well. So
So these guys are feeding in blank. So these then cross-cut. on the line, or is it a complete solid plank that's going in?
Yeah, so they'll get cut for
Right, so
for block.
yeah.
Yeah, and some of those full lit. You see that pallet design there, so that's going full.
Yeah. Ah, right. Okay. So you can see it halfway through the
So this is-
manufacturing process.
Yeah, so
there.
this is effectively the board placement on this machine,
Yeah.
more than anything.
Yeah.
Hence the two-way pallet,
Yeah.
entry in on two sides only.
We've been through the more automated part of the process. These
Yeah.
are more bespoke type.
Absolutely,
pallets,
yeah.
and these are the whiskey ones, I think.
These ones here in particular are so yeah. As I've mentioned, so we're either making pallets in here because they don't lend themselves to automation either due to size or volume. But I should say as well, and you're watching it in progress, in terms of speed of efficiency, despite it being a manual operation, you know, the output from the team here is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, you must. We must get through a lot of nails in the day.
Yep.
And so obviously quite a high attention to quality. There's someone doing some checks there.
Yeah, and we always look at this as well, just to make sure, you know, from a manual handling perspective, is there anything that we could do differently
Right.
as well, just to, because it's as you can see, large, robust pallets to handle, two-men team.
So there'll be some barrels of whiskey going on.
Absolutely.
On these.